But no, we were just catching up, man. I mean, we only met like a few days ago. You were in town for a short period of time, but
Love your energy, Blake.
oh, I love yours, man.
Love it. When I saw your face in the poster, I was like, this man looks energetic and youthful.
Right.
And then I saw you perform. You were first did a spot, and then you were emceeing. I'm like, this is a cool comic. You're funny first, which is important.
Oh, thank you, man.
But you just got great energy. So yeah, right back at you.
Thank you, bro. No, I was just saying, honestly, like, because we were just, before we started the interview, but we were talking about, obviously, you're from South Africa.
Yeah.
You do some broadcasting, you do podcasting over there. I just learned that. I'm saying it like I've known it for years.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
As
it's
everyone,
fine.
as all know. But you said that your priority has been stand-up. You started in 2010. But I want to go back a bit further, man. Like, when was the first time you remember seeing stand-up? Like, do you remember like, seeing a special or
Yes.
live? What was it?
Yeah, so first time I saw stand-up comedy, I was a youngster. The comic that I saw was one of the South African game changers, one of the South African icons. His name is Mark Lottering.
Mark Lottering.
Mark
Mark
Lottering.
Lottering.
Yeah,
okay,
Mark Lottering. And he's from Cape Town. Ironically, he is from the same area that I'm in.
Wow.
So the area that I grew up in Cape Town is called Retreat. It's not a day spa. It's not like a retreat or the retreat. But we grew up a few kilometers from each other. He's I never think comics age. I don't think comics age. I think that because we're always on the ground, fingers on the pulse, chatting to audiences from all different walks of life, all different age groups. We never age, so we're always relevant. And I say this because he is in his 50s already, but still performing globally in South Africa. And one of the coolest things about stand-up is you can have your first encounter with me. It was Mark Lottering, watching him as a youngster.
Yeah.
So not even 13 yet, watching it. It was on cassette. I don't know how old you are. VHS.
28. I remember VHS.
VHS?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the show was called From the Cape Flats with Love. The Cape Flats is an area...
It's a great title.
Yeah, it's a great title. Cape Flats is an area in Cape Town.
Yep.
And he's from the Cape Flats, so From the Cape Flats with Love, and watched that as a youngster. And our coolest stand-up comedy, because it's one of the very few careers where you can watch your heroes, and then if fortune favors you, you can perform on the same lineup as them. If it favors you more, you can become friends with them. If it favors you more, you can start hanging out with them. And luckily, that's the space that we exist
I was
in.
going to say, man, did you end up performing with him? Did you end up, and you like,
Yeah.
and you hit it off and stuff?
Dude, he hit it off 100%. He's got an amazing afro. There's a nice little grey patch over here. If you guys are adding any images to this podcast, pop Mark Lottering up over here.
Sure.
You'll see what I mean. But how ironic is this? So I started comedy in 2010.
Yeah.
So I'm a qualified high school maths and history teacher. So undergrad, I did a BA, politics and history were my majors.
Oh, you're properly educated.
Oh, properly educated.
Comics don't like that. We don't like
Look
that.
at that. We don't like that. Don't worry. I only taught for 5 months. So.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. But the cool thing is I did my my history honors thesis on comedy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, comedy and identity. Particularly to South Africa, colored identity, because I'm a colored kid from South Africa.
Yep.
And then he was one of the guys I interviewed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was this before or after you sort of established a friendship?
No, this is before.
Oh,
so I'm
cool.
only doing comedy maybe for 6 months.
Dude, comedy for you has just been trying to get close to Mark Lottering the whole time, the whole journey.
Yeah, you
You're
know
doing
what?
uni, just picking him to interview.
Not just him.
Is he alive? Did you
He's
get him
still
in the
alive.
basement? Have you like what's
He's
going
in
on?
the boot of my car. He's in the boot of my car. Leave him there. He's fine. But I got to interview 10 other comedians, and we got to speak about comedy. And then the funny part of all this is because I was a new open mic, right? And then within that year, started pushing comedy more. And now I'm friends with all the comics that I got to interview, and we perform on the same stages. And the short of this long story is that's how cool comedy is.
Yeah, totally, man.
You just get to link with the cream of the crop. You can do it in the first 6 months.
Yes.
Just by default of being an open mic on a lineup with a big headliner.
And to add to that, I feel like, you know, the comics who are really good at what they do, regardless of any background or style, they're always very welcoming of those coming up, you know? It's
always
the ones that were great. They always, because they admire anyone who's giving it a go, and they're always friendly, and they're not insecure, you know?
We know how tough it is to be on stage.
Yes.
And even coming to Perth, the love that I've received from Perth has been amazing. So when planning my trip, I think it was about a month and a half notice that I was like, hey guys, I'm coming to Perth.
Yep.
Is there spots? Emo Majok, one of the Perth comics, we performed at Johannesburg International Comedy Fest together.
Yeah, wow.
So he's like, yo, if you come through, let me know. Made contact with him. He was good people, putting me in contact with the other individuals running comedy, a comedy lounge as well. I got 2 comics back home, friends of mine, Carvin Goldstone and Conrad Koch. They played you already, so you know how the comedy networks go. You need someone to vouch for you.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, guys, I need spots. I need you
Sure.
to send WhatsApps or make phone calls.
Yeah.
Another guy, Joe White, who was friends with them. Joe's based in...
Love Joe White.
Yeah,
Shout out to
Joe's
him.
amazing. Shout out to him. So you just had this amazing community, but then I came here and then meeting all of you guys,
Yeah.
just blown away by the love. So
Well, man, your energy. I mean, it's interesting though, because you talk about, you know, comics talk a lot about likability on stage
Yeah.
and energy and sort of like almost unconscious intention. And I felt immediately when I watched UMC as well, I was like, the likability was through the roof. But it was, you know, do you have a comedy mantra? Do you have an intention when you go out on stage? Like, is there a particular thing you love about stand-up? You know, because it seems like, for me, as an audience member, when I watch you, is that you want everyone to just like have a great time, a silly time. And I know that sounds very
Yes.
general, but I mean, it's hard to do. You know, it's simple, but
Yeah.
it's hard to do, is to put ego aside and say, listen, let's all just have an awesome time, you know, let's be silly.
that's what it is, man. There's so many facets to it. I think the first one, just being a comedian, dude, we such a special group of humans who get to pursue our passion and genuinely love it. Like, if you told us we could do 3 gigs a night for the rest of our life, we'd be like, yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it, right? But that being said, we also know what good rooms are and we also know what tough rooms are. I don't want to call it bad rooms, I'll call it tough rooms.
I like that.
Yeah, we've played 2 people in the audience. You're
Sure.
like, let's do it.
Yeah.
We've played rooms where there's no audience and it's comics and we're workshopping. Or you come to the comedy lounge and boom, you have a room that's here for stand-up comedy.
Smash.
And,
yeah.
and it just pops. And then aside from that is, I love the art form. I love being a student of the art form. I love watching comics. I think the journey is such an amazing thing. So seeing someone who maybe started a year ago and then seeing them in 10 years' time, and you're going, oh my word, you found your voice, you found your identity, you found out who you want to be on stage.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the post-COVID growth that I experienced was pretty big in terms of just finding my voice again and being comfortable with me on stage. So when I'm on stage, I just want the audience to know, yo, this is me. This is all I can give you.
Sure.
I can't give you anything more, but we're going to have a cool time.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy it, amazing. If you don't, it's cool. But this is me, and I hope that you can enjoy me being me as organically as possible. And the final one is, audience members are so special because they don't have to come to shows.
Right.
Like, they don't have to support our careers. They don't have to spend whatever amount of money on a ticket, get babysitters, get dressed up, you know, plan the night and come and have a great time. So by the time we're on stage, the investment has already been prior to arriving.
Yeah, and you got to think about
You got
that,
to
right?
think, yeah, you got to
You
show
gotta have
up
the
for them, man.
gratitude just to be
Yeah,
like,
I was teasing you when I saw you with a suit and a white T-shirt, but you're showing up for audience. Like,
Sure.
if you arrive on stage like this, they already go, okay,
Mm.
he's got me before I come onto stage, and he's shown up for me, so I'm going to be present. You know what I mean? I'm not saying
Yeah.
that you have to be clean cut, but you determine what energy you give off in your persona,
Yeah.
and let it be 10,000% organically you. Yeah.
And I think, and I admire that too. You know, and it's something that I could pick up when I watched you on stage as well. Is it's like, you know, there are some comics who die on their shield, so to speak. You know, like they give, if there's 2 people in the audience, they still give the same performance. They don't try and shy down and say,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is going to be a bad gig, and
Yeah.
I'm working on you. They're like, I'm giving you all my all, even to
Everything.
nothing. You
Everything.
Yeah.
I don't mind dying as well. Like,
Sure.
The death is good because there's growth in death.
Know? Yeah.
Like, we've all had moments where we drive home and you're driving 40 k's an hour, listening to Boys to Men, going, why on earth did I choose
Boyz
this?
II
as-"
Men.
Yeah, I listen to love songs when I die, bro. I don't know about you.
you bomb me like, I'll
Make love to you. I sing Boys to Men when I die. I put that old school album, End of
Jesus.
the Road, yeah, with Mariah Carey, and I don't cry. I almost get the tears.
Yeah.
But you know how it is, because
Sure.
and then you have this moment, especially if you know the gags are funny, but you're only as good as your last gig and the one that you're busy with. And you're like,
Totally.
that was funny last week. Why didn't it work?
Mm.
And then you're contemplating everything. So, and that's why every gig is precious, because you can never predict the outcome.
Mm.
You can never come up here cocky and assume that it's always going to work.
Right.
But if you've done it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you kind of start learning that you have funny bones and start knowing that what you think is funny and that your rhythms and your isms are funny.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of time and experience.
Well, I want to ask about as well, man. there's so many different styles of great comics. You know, there are so many greats. You know, different backgrounds, different perspectives, and things like that. In your opinion, what's one thing they all have in common? Like for you, you know, and even just your opinion as to what makes a great comic in your mind. What's something that they have to have, irregardless of their style?
I love great energy,
Yeah.
but also untidiness.
Untidiness. Okay.
That is tidy.
So you mean like the imperfections on stage, like
So when I wasn't a comedian, I could never understand it. So let's say it's an hour special, and I'll set up with, oh my word, this chair over here is amazing, and then I pin it in the chair, but I don't tell the audience I'm pinning it in the chair.
Okay.
And then I speak about 20 other things, and 15 minutes later I come back to the chair, but I'm not done with the chair yet. And then I go to another U-turn over there, and then I come back to the chair. So you're working your set with the opening image, and then there's a callback here, callback, and eventually closing in spaces like that.
Okay.
So having like a constant, but in all that organized chaos, you as the comic know.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I see what you're saying.
You as the comic knows the beautiful structure of this.
Yes, so freedom within the structure.
There we go. The
Yeah.
freedom of movement. But the audience might be like, "Oh my word, he's coming back to it."
What a magic trick.
What a
Yeah, sure.
But that only comes after years, because
Totally.
I mean, I know when I started, I just wrote linear, I wrote straight. I went, these are the jokes, and I will follow this road to the jokes.
I would always use the metaphor, like a lot of my sets early on, they were like Christmas lights.
Yes.
You know, if one goes out, they all go out. You know, like they're all lined up. If
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
heckles that it's like, well, I don't remember anything else. You know?
Yes.
But you start to, you know,
And you learn. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be linear. It can be so groovy and so sexy. And sometimes you don't even have to do that gag, even if you prepared it.
yes,
You know what I mean? And you start learning this only by being on stage. Like, stage time is so precious, and it's the only commodity that we have. With stage time and laughter, that's our things, man. That's what we want to do. We want to write, we want to stay present. But how do we become better being on stage? That will improve everything, because you can study to be a comedian. No, you can't. Be on stage. That's the education. That's where
Yes.
you're studying. You can't go to university. It's that trade. So
yeah,
if you're on stage, you're going to know how to deal with a heckler. You're going to know how to deal with a gag dying. You're going to know how to deal with a multicultural audience, a multinational audience,
Yeah.
everything. But there's nothing in theory. So, like a lot of young comics, when I say young comics didn't even start maybe.
Yeah.
Go, what's your advice? I'm like, don't do it.
yeah,
It's difficult.
totally.
And it's tough.
Yeah.
And you've got to put ego aside. You've got to love the art form and go back and learn how to write a tight 5, a tight 10, 15, and then you grow and you learn how to write an hour. But if you're not willing to put in the hours on stage,
Yeah,
it's not gonna evolve into this beautiful thing that it can, or you're not maybe gonna reach your full potential on stage.
yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're joking when you say don't do it, but it's so funny, because something that I want to learn about from you as well is the danger really comes in your growth as a comic when you need your wins, because we all need wins in
Yeah.
life. You know, we all need to feel good about ourselves.
100%.
You know, and if that is comedy for you, it's so dangerous. It's so hard, because, like
tough.
you said, every gig is different.
Yeah.
You know, and people sometimes can smell when you're desperate you need this gig. It's not
Yes.
about them anymore. It's about you.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, I want to ask about, if it's not too personal, like through your growth as a comic, like how has your home life been? How has your base been outside of comedy? Is that important? Have you worked on that? You know, has it made you a better comic to have a more stable life outside of comedy?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. So the balance is extremely important. So I'm close friends with the six guys who I grew up with in the same area. So that's been important. I'm quite close with very close with a bunch of school friends as well.
Yeah,
The
great.
reason I mention this is because I think it's extremely important to have friends who aren't just comedians.
Yes, totally.
It's important. That balance is important. I can't speak about gags forever.
Yeah.
I would want to, and I love being in the green room with comics, hanging out with comics,
Sure.
traveling with comics, being friends with comics is the best thing in the world. Even now that I'm in Australia, I'm messaging guys back home going, I wish you were here, because I just want to bounce gags of you.
Totally.
I want to share the rooms with you. I want you to see how amazing the infrastructure in Australia is, especially in Perth, with the amazing rooms that you guys have and the consistency with audiences, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
But with that balance, for me, it's been family is very important. So like going back to visit my mom and my dad for Sunday lunch, just
Yeah.
on weekends and switching off and making
Yes.
sure that being a comedian doesn't matter in that space. So for me, that's important, especially if we've been on the road for quite a while. I try to run quite a bit, so outdoor activities.
Yep.
I'm based in Cape Town in South Africa, so we're very, very fortunate. We've got lots of nature. So we've got mountains. Australia doesn't have mountains. You've got, like, Perth is amazing.
Flat. It's one row. It's
Yeah,
one level.
But like when I look at Perth, I'm like, imagine there were mountains here. It would have been amazing.
Imagine.
Yeah, so I like hiking. When I say hiking, I don't mean like hectic hiking. Just
Yeah.
walking in the mountains, switching
Totally.
off for 2-3 hours, sometimes 4, and just getting in there. Walks along the ocean, runs along the ocean. Like some functional fitness as well, just to, because dieting, and I sound like an uncle here, but dude, we have bad eating habits.
Yes. Well, comedy, like the stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
it's not conducive for
Yeah, eating and
healthy
drinking
lifestyles. Late nights,
It's tough. It's tough.
fried food.
And you know when you start learning, it affects you. When you're doing an hour and you're like 20 minutes in, you're like, oh, my lower back.
Right.
This never happened before.
I'm cramping up.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I got a side stitch over here.
Sure.
Or you turn about, you're like, oh, this is a new role over here. This
Especially
is fun.
because if you're quite physical on
Yeah,
stage.
you're physical
as
on
well,
stage and you're moving. So that's important. Also, just having your core people that love you.
Yeah.
You know, it's important, whether it's your wife, your fiance, your husband, your partner, whoever, just making sure that when you're with them, you're present, and you start learning how to balance when to be on stage and off stage. It is tough because we love this thing
Yeah.
so much, but I do need moments, and that's kind of how I balance it. And I also work in broadcasting. I work in radio, so I do breakfast radio in Cape Town. We 6 to 9 a.m.
Yep.
The station's called Good Hope FM. I've been there 11 years. I'm doing comedy
Wow.
13 years, 2010, and then been at Good Hope since 2012. So it's been a great way of building a comedy audience as well.
Yeah.
But also, you speak of the discipline, man. You breakfast show, you're up at 4:30,
Yeah.
and you're doing comedy late at night,
yeah.
but also not letting comedy suffer. So being aware of what's the purpose of this? What's the end goal? Is the end goal to be in broadcasting forever, or is the end goal to be a comedian and use different avenues to keep building core markets? And I think comics are just great because we can branch off into TV, into radio, into theater, into any performance art for that matter. But stand-up is still the core. So it's like a full overview. And I don't even know if I answered your question because I enjoyed
No,
talking.
you did, man. No,
But yeah.
100%. Like, because well, first of all, what you just alluded to at the very end there, I think it's hard, you know, because when you get into comedy and, you know, you're not getting paid, you're not making a living off it as of yet, you know, you're building that up, and then you might take a day job or whatever it is to pay the bills in the meantime. But it's so easy to get pulled off, and then that becomes the focus, you know.
Bro,
and you stop
so
writing,
easy,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But there's this, our gut is always right. Like, you start learning to trust your gut, and you start knowing more and more what you want out of this art form. So I think the longer you perform and the more years you're in it, you go, perspective changes, season changes, and you know that, okay, I want to be a comedian now. For me, for example, the season is I need to travel more. So Australia's first point of call with
Yep.
it's 5 cities. So we go Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney, Perth, Melbourne. Okay, what's next? How do we keep growing? How do we keep building so that you don't feel redundant
Yeah.
in terms of stand-up? Like, South Africa's got a great comedy scene, fantastic stand-up comedians as well. Cape Town and Johannesburg, that's kind of the big hub cities. And then Durban and Gqeberha as well. You'll have gigs popping up. There's 9 provinces, so there'll be pop-up gigs in a lot of them, but Cape Town and Johannesburg as the core cities. But it's such a small country. So over here, you can tour interstate and be on the road for quite a while. It's very difficult to do that back home.
Right.
Yeah, so if you look at the growth and the seasons, you go, okay, what's next? How do I keep evolving to become a better comedian? And also South Africa, we're so diverse. We're always speaking to different audiences, lots of cultural isms
Yes.
in every part of the country and the city that you go to.
Yeah.
So traveling now, I'm like, oh, I've got to unlearn. There's one of South Africa's favorites, one of Africa's favorites, Loyiso Gola. They love him in Australia as well.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he did Africa's
Get his photo up right
Yeah,
here.
get his photo up, yeah. Well, he's one of the goats, man. He did Africa's first Netflix special
Oh, wow.
as well. Yeah. So Loyiso's show on Netflix is called Unlearning. And he speaks about how when he was traveling here to unlearn a lot of the things that he maybe grew up with or was exposed to, especially when you're in different countries and different cities, just because it doesn't mean you did things this way. It's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
So for me as a comic, I'm enjoying being in Australia for that. Just going,
Right.
I can't say this. There's no reference point here. They don't understand it. It doesn't matter if that gag's funny back home. There's no reference
Sure.
point in Australia. Okay, how do we be a better comedian? Do we scrap the gag? Do we rewrite it? Do we find a reference point? Do we not? So for me, that's been the exciting part of the growth and evolution journey.
Well, I think that, you know, when you're motivated, I guess a big thing would be you're clearly motivated by, and it sounds pretentious, but the craft, you know, the problem solving of stand-up.
We
right?
love the art, man.
All the consistency things, you know, not trying to get the wins and the feel goods and the dopamine hits of, you know, everyone's paying attention to me. How does one, and this is a difficult question to answer, but how does one get addicted to broccoli in that sense?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? How do you,
Yeah.
if you are someone who is motivated, because I very much was motivated by probably the wrong reasons, you know, to get into acting, to stand up was look at me, some love, some attention.
Yeah.
But then you start to realize that's not sustainable. You're just not going to make it. You're going to burn
Yeah.
out. So how would, if there was someone who maybe is listening and thinks, you know what, I think I want to get more involved in falling in love with the problem solving and the craft and the growth for the right reasons, how do they do that?
Just get onto stage, man.
Just keep getting up.
Keep getting up, play as many rooms as possible in as many different areas as possible.
Yeah.
If you're based in Perth, just play rooms that love you, and then rooms that you think don't love you, rooms that are uncomfortable, rooms that are comfortable.
Yeah.
Play the rooms where you know, whew, it's going to be 2 people here tonight.
Yeah.
But that, I remember going to the National Arts Festival in South Africa back home. It happens in the Eastern Cape in a town called Makanda. And there were 5 people at my show. And it was 200 seater, it was raining. And I got in there and I laughed. I'm like, listen here, we're not going to cancel the show. The show's going to happen. But there's a bar in the venue. Let's go to the bar in the venue. I'm going to buy you guys some snacks and some drinks. And we're just going to chat like we're having a cool catch-up over a barbecue or
No
braai
way.
back home. And they all said, yeah, let's do it. And we did the show. And it was one of my favorite performances.
No way.
It was so cool, dude, because you're in the deep end, eh?
Yeah.
And now you're learning how to be funny in an intimate setting where we're talking
Totally.
and conversing. But also, they're just so excited that they're having a 1-on-5 here. Like, they expected to be in this big theater, but now we're just chatting. And as a comedian, you learn, geez, this skill set of mine, there's so many different facets and armory that you have to it. It's not just about being in a big room and gag. It's about being present in the moment, in the performance at the time. And I think the more I learned how to do that, the more I grow and start becoming a better comic and better performer. And also, I think and I say better because better is always a reference to myself.
Yes.
It's with no one else. Like, you're not in competition, but when you start as a comic, you mentioned it earlier, you don't know this. You think it's because there's competitions to get on this lineup, this competition gets you flown over here, gets you on this big bowl, and you think, oh, I must be better than that person, I must be better than this person. But then the self-discovery happens when you realize how much you love this art, and for you to grow as a performer, just pushing egos aside, being friends with your peers. I mean, that's the number one thing. Comics book comics. Comics love comics. We love touring with comics.
Yeah.
But you only realize that maybe a few years in. If you realize it early, fantastic. And then you realize it a few years in, you look back, you're like, oh man, why was it so competitive? Because I played cricket quite competitively as a youngster. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played junior state cricket.
Sure.
Yeah. So you come from a sports background, and now everything is da-da-da-da-da. And then you start stand-up, and you think it's the same. And you're like, no, check yourself, bro.
Yeah.
Check your privilege. Just all of that must go. Learn how to be better at the craft, and the rest will take care of itself.
Well, it's paying dividends, man, because again, that's why you're probably able to come into a foreign country,
Yeah,
a foreign town, and
just-
everyone immediately is just like, get in here,
Get in
Dalin,"
here,
you
get in
know?
here. Come rack up more debt. It's fine.
Yeah, rack up more debt.
Come rack up
Please,
more
man,
debt.
you know, we'll put it on the tab for
Thank you.
the WA government. But, man, you sound like you're in such a great space, and I hope you stay in it, because for someone like me who's early in the career,
Yeah.
it's inspiring to look at someone further down the line in the career and not only see a great skill set, but also just a happy energy. You know, that's what inspires me most
Yeah.
of all. I can watch someone who's a great comic on stage and has tools, but if they get off stage and they're miserable and they're low
Yeah.
energy and they're bitter and they're angry, I mean, that worries me. But, you know, so it's inspiring, honestly, for me to meet
Right
people
back
like
at you,
yourself
man.
who are happy and like, oh man, this is a great craft. I love it. You know, I feel inspired. Is there any advice though if you could go back and chat to to teenage Dalin. You know,
Teenage.
like
I had braces. I had pimples. My nose and my ears were not settled in my face yet. I looked awkward. Eh?
I want to hear this advice. If you could go back to like 13-year-old Dalin, you know, he's just starting his adolescence. You know, he's teenage. He's going back to go into high school. All these things. Is there any advice you would give him, just for life and for what's coming ahead? Anything that you've learnt that you would want to apply?
You know what? Because I don't have regrets.
Yeah.
I enjoyed every season of my life and enjoyed every moment in every journey. But what I'm learning more as I get older, and I'm laughing because I'm trying to articulate this in the best possible way. People don't always have the same intentions as you. And they don't always have the same pure intentions. So in my world, I want everyone to win.
Yeah.
And I think sport was a great foundation for that because, and I'll use cricket as an analogy because that was my life up until 27, even though I was still starting as a comedian and performing for like 6 years. In cricket, if you get a duck, but your teammate gets a ton, a century, you celebrate your teammate. You're like, mate, well done.
Yeah.
You did amazing. I got a duck. It's fine. I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. Your teammate takes 5 wickets, gets a 5 You have a horrible day. You get another duck. You still go, flip, I'm depressed and I'm sad, but well done. So it teaches you how to celebrate the successes of your peers. Because your time will come eventually, whether it's now, in a year's time, 2's time, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But everyone else's mindset is not like that. Yes. So if it's comedy, for example, I love seeing new comics start because I'm like, oh man, this is so great. Like if you need links to a gig, if you need links to a person, here's this, here's that, here's that. Knowledge is free. Kevin Hart speaks about it all the time, and we've got to share. Like, there's enough to eat for all of us.
Yes.
But everyone's mentality is not in that space. So if it was in a summarized sentence, is everyone doesn't have the same pure intentions as you, and you're going to learn tough life lessons through that, but that's okay because it's going to make you a better human, better comedian, and an all-round better person. And yeah, just treat humans for what they are. Be a good person.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost for me.
13-year-old Dalin would be proud of you.
Dude, he'd be so proud. Like,
he'd be proud, man.
Treat people for people, regardless of backgrounds, whatever the case is. Just be a good human and the rest will follow.
You're a great human, man.
You're a great human.
It's a pleasure to fucking chat to you, man. Honestly, I've really, really enjoyed it.
Likewise. And love your suit with a clipboard.
The suit and the clipboard. No tie. I didn't want to go too far. But, man, honestly, it's been so good. I think people are going to get a lot out of this. And at worst case, I've gotten a lot out of it. So thank you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Blake.
Dalin Oliver, ladies and gentlemen.
Blake.
There he is.
It's amazing. He doesn't need a surname, but it's Richardson.
Thank you, bro. That was awesome, man. Honestly, I really enjoyed it.
I get deep very quickly sometimes.